So going back to like your supply chain, how does your organization's supply chain works? How do you get your products? Where do
Okay.
your products?
So we have our products made in China, which I know like people are boycotting China right now. I'll tell you why we're still in China. So China has, they're amazing at what they do. They can take a product, you could send them a picture of a product and a fabric sample, and they can recreate that product for you. You can tell them to change the sleeve, change the neckline, change this, all over like a video chat, and they will change it for you. And they will do the full package. So they'll find the fabric for you, all the buttons and trims and elastics. They'll find it all for you, put it together in a package, and sell you the garment. So in America, they're just starting to learn how to do this. In America, you have to go find the fabric yourself, and you have to ship it to your sewing factory. And then you have to go find the trims and the buttons and ship those to your sewing factory and coordinate that all yourself. And then the sewing factory sews it. And then you have to coordinate the packaging and have the packaging sent over to the sewing factory and the boxes. And then you have to have it shipped to your warehouse and repackaged and shipped back out. In China, you literally can give them the specs from the fabrications, the fit, everything, pattern making, all the way through to like pack it in this kind of poly bag and put this kind of UPC label on it and pack it in a box with this inscription on it and ship it to directly to our customers' distribution centers for us. So it's really like, I could be sitting here in my home office just typing everything out on emails and FaceTime or Zoom calls and WeChat with them, and it's so much easier. I don't have to have as much of a team. So I'm really hoping that in America we can learn to do more of that, so we can bring some back, or switching some of our production. We're looking into like places like Vietnam and South America, and just sort of getting everybody else up on board with that. So
Uh,
if you could help any production facilities in America to get up to speed on things like that and thinking about their customer, which is us first, that would be amazing.
I have a question about that too. So, if everything is, I mean, if you're not, I guess, touching every product and like making sure the quality is, I mean, up to par to you, how do you, if you send out the specs and everything like that, and you assume that it's going to be done correctly, how is the quality assurance on the other side?
That
Like
is a
once it gets
great.
shipped to the TJ Maxx, and then what if it's not? What if you tried it on and you know exactly how you want it to look, and then it gets shipped out to like a TJ Maxx and it
That's
doesn't
a
fit?
great question. So we have had those issues, and we still do have some of those issues. I mean, we just had an issue where we're doing a linen fabric, and it came in super stiff. So we get what's called a first fit sample, which is like we give them an idea and they send me a first fit sample. I try it on, I video conference with them, and I give them my comments. Then they send a pre-production sample, which is like they've made my fit comments, and they say, is it ready for production? And I try it on again. I make a few more comments and I say, okay, send it to production. Then they'll send us what's called a top of production sample. So the TOP sample comes to me, and that's supposed to be right off the production line. And if that is wrong, I stop production immediately and say, hey, you got to change this. You can't continue with this. But hopefully by the time it gets to TOP, it's good. But we did just, however, have that linen group where they sent me the TOP, and the fabric it felt like a burlap sack. It was so stiff, and it was much stiffer than the pre-production samples. So we're actually arguing with our factory right now, and we're having to research our samples and show them like, look, you sent us this, we approved it, and then you sent us this, and it's not right. So at that point, we would either reject the production supply, or we would take a discount on it, because we would have to sell it, instead of selling it to our boutique customers, we might have to close it out at TJ Maxx. So the margin wouldn't be as good. We would ask for a discount in order to get rid of it, which they usually will give us because they don't want to sit on the goods in China with nowhere to sell them. So those things do come up quite often.
Ethan, you have a question?
Yeah, I was asking, there's a lot of opportunity for pretty much anything you can think of on Amazon. Is any of your stuff compatible with Amazon?
Yeah, so I'll tell you a funny story. So we actually was it in May or April, when the whole pandemic started, we jumped on to making masks like everybody else in the world. But we were one of the first. So we had our mask on Amazon. We hired an Amazon consultant to help us do this. And we became the #1 cloth face mask on Amazon. We were on Apple News, Tart Collections favorite face mask. We were like, oh my God, we're killing it. We sold like $1.5 million in mask in 1 month. So then all of a sudden we noticed that there was other people's masks being sold under the name Tart Collections, which is our brand. So we were like, how are they doing that? So we had to go into Amazon and complain. Well, it takes Amazon a while. They were so overwhelmed with all the online orders that they were getting because of the pandemic, and so overwhelmed with masks that it took them a while to kick those guys off. Well, then those guys, after they had sold all this product under our label, the product was inferior and not good. And so people were returning the product and making comments on us. So they were rating us based on the fraudulent product. So then our ratings went down on Amazon. So all of a sudden our sales like fell off a cliff. So where we thought we were going to make $1 million on mask, we ended up barely making any money on mask, and we invested a lot of money in it. So it's interesting. You always think you have like, oh, this is fail proof, nothing bad can happen here. And then all of a sudden somebody knocks you down. And that's kind of the way it is in business. Like you always think you're safe. Somebody's always going to knock you down. You always have to be able to reinvent yourself and be a problem solver.
That's very interesting.
I know.
But like you said, it's common. It happens all the time, especially in China where there's no trademark and
yeah. And this was a Chinese company that was selling the fraudulent mask. And so they were shipping them from China. It was taking like 2 weeks to get the product to the customer. They were complaining. I mean, it was so bad. And so we still have, I think we have like 90,000 masks in our warehouse that we haven't been able to get rid of because of this whole ordeal.
That's crazy.
And luckily we got our investment out of it, but now we're just, all of our profit is sitting in the warehouse. So that's another problem. I don't know if you guys talk about inventory and how that can really kill a company. So if you buy too much inventory and you're sitting on it, all your cash is tied up in your warehouse, it is really bad. It's better to take a loss and get rid of that inventory as quickly as possible and turn that cash into something that's a better product.
Right. Yeah, because you're losing money because you're paying money for it to sit there.
Yeah, right? I mean, our inventory level is up right now. So we went heavy into sleepwear also in the fall, and our containers got stuck. I don't know if you guys saw that there were ships. So first of all, we had a container ship that got in a storm in the ocean, and the containers are stacked like this. And by the end of the trip, they were stacked like this. So some were falling off this way, some were falling off this way. Some of the containers fell into the ocean and were lost. And they had to turn the ship around and go to Japan to port so that they could determine like whose goods were lost, restack the containers, which ones were damaged. So we have a huge insurance claim on that. But we lost a ton of sales due to that. So we lost $1 million in sales just in December because that one container ship got into a storm. So that's another problem with supply chain. So we also had orders that we brought in that weren't exactly what our customer wanted. So we took a risk in ordering things that the customer hadn't ordered yet. And we thought, oh, they're going to like this. Well, they're not quite ready for it. They said, we don't want that yet. We're going to push that out 6 months. So now we're sitting with, instead of what we normally hold $2 million in inventory, now we're sitting with $3.5 million in inventory. So our warehouse, who holds all of our inventory and does our shipping for us, they're charging us an extra $7,000 a month to hold this inventory that we have excess. So you want to make sure that you have just-in-time inventory. Your inventory lands and it ships right out so that you don't get stuck with all those inventory charges. And, getting warehouse space, especially on the West Coast, it's really expensive and it's hard to find. Real estate here is very expensive. So that's, something else to consider is like, where are you going to have your warehouse? My suggestion, don't have it in California. Yeah, I mean, having a warehouse in the middle of the country is great. It's cheap land. It's close to everybody, so you can ship things really quickly. The only problem you have is if you're having things made overseas, it takes a little bit longer, a few days longer to truck it or train it from the port to your distribution center. But in my opinion, I'd rather spend the time on the front end than when the customer orders, it takes them longer to get their goods.